Hi, and welcome back to my booktube channel here on YouTube. I hope you're doing well and that your 2024 reading year has started off well so far. In today's video, I want to talk to you about my goals for 2024 in regards to my reading. So before I go into the goals themselves, I just want to say that in general, I don't really need like a numbers goal. Um, I, uh, I read like it doesn't matter if I have like a goal of reading 100 books a year. I'm gonna just read 100 books a year. I don't really need any incentive to read. So I decided not to have any like number goal like that this year. So I'll just, I usually read between maybe 70 and 120 books a year, or at least that's been the case since 2018. And I'm already reading so much. So I decided not to put down numbers like that. But instead, I decided to kind of challenge myself a little bit. So I am in my kind of personal life, I'm really focusing on adapting more of a slow living mindset. I work in academia, which can be very demanding and stressful. So I'm really trying to kind of protect my mental state and energy levels by being very kind of mindful in my personal life. And so I don't have a lot of challenges outside of reading, really. I'm a runner and I do other things, but I'm not putting any like goals in regards to I need to run this far in this certain time, or I need to hike these many mountains, or whatever. I'm not doing that, but instead I decided to kind of put all of the challenges for the year into reading, and kind of put myself a little bit like, I don't know, broaden my horizon, but also challenge myself with some more maybe serious or more literary type of reading. I read a lot of, I love to read classics and literary fiction in general, but the majority of what I read is crime thrillers that I love, and I'm not going to stop reading those at all. But I feel that sometimes, they can be very kind of formulaic. So it's nice to read something completely different that isn't like a mystery of who did something or didn't do something, and like a flawed detective who is having problems in their personal life and have to solve a serial killer murder, the very typical crime thriller that I read. So I wanted to challenge myself really, and to go into some literary fiction, or like in books, literature in general, that is a little bit outside of that genre. Genre is one of the most difficult words to say for non-English speakers, just so you know. But I want to go outside of that genre of crime thrillers and like whodunit type of fiction. I really love historical fiction, but I figured that maybe it's also nice to read more fiction that was actually written in the time period it takes place, and not like modern literature that is historical, if you know what I mean. I love those as well, and I'm definitely going to be reading those as well. But yeah, anyway, so that's kind of my little caveat before we go into my goals. So here you can see just my goals in general, but let's just go straight into the first category, which is more classics. And this year I have decided that I want to read all of the 7 novels by the Bronte sisters. So that's Charlotte, Emily, and Anne. And I just, I don't know where I got that idea from. It must have been someone here on BookTube who was talking about Jane Eyre, or maybe they were talking about Wuthering Heights, and they really didn't like it. And I was thinking, like, why wouldn't they like Wuthering Heights? It's like so famous, right? And I figured, okay. And then I was just like looking into the Bronte sisters. Obviously, I'd heard of them before, and I feel that we did read some. I almost feel like I've read Wuthering Heights in college during my English degree, but I don't remember it at all. Like I think I know this premise, and I've probably seen some movie made from it at some point in my life, but I figured why not read that again. And then I was just looking at all the sisters who were writers, and figured, yes, let's just read all of the Bronte sisters. So that's my goal, to read all of them, all of their 7 novels. And I was like connected with that. I would also love to read some like biographies, or like about their life and things like that. I've watched some YouTube YouTube videos about them, and it would be fun to maybe read some biographies. I already have it on my TBR for the biography of Charlotte Bronte by Elizabeth Gaskell. But yeah, I would love to read about all of those 3 sisters, especially Anne, which I haven't really heard anything about her. But anyway, so first goal is to read all of the novels by the Bronte sisters. So the second goal within the classics, read more classics goal, is to read more Victorian literature. I love, as I said, classics, and but I feel that I've read a lot of Regency and a lot of like early 20th century. I haven't read that much Victorian. I mean, I have read a couple of Charles Dickens. Henry James, is he Victorian? He's definitely in that, around that time period. But that's basically it. And especially like to read more female authors, like the Bronte sisters, obviously, and just get to know a little bit more Victorian authors, like English authors or UK-based authors. And also, I think connected to that, it is that there are a couple of, not a lot of, Icelandic authors who were writing in the second part of the 19th century. But I would definitely I do know a couple of books that were written, and I would definitely like to maybe read those as well. Yeah, so I would want to read a little bit more Victorian literature, but also I want to read Russian literature. I remember many years ago I saw a movie from Crime and Punishment with Dr. What is his? Stephen? He played, the doctor in Grey's Anatomy. Patrick Dempsey. He played the hero, and the man who played a detective, he's also a super famous actor. That movie, it just, I still remember how I felt watching that movie. And I've always been wanting to read Tolstoy or Dostoevsky, I think. Yeah, Dostoevsky, and then Tolstoy, and all these different famous Russian authors. So I've decided that I'm gonna read Crime and Punishment and War and Peace this year, and possibly Anna Karenina. There's also there are also a few other like famous books. I would like to. I think it's good to maybe start with the really famous ones, so that because you kind of know that they are probably pretty good. Yeah, so those are my kind of classics goals: the Bronte sisters, more Victorian literature in general, and some Russian literature. My second goal for the 2024 is to read Halldór Laxness. So Halldór Laxness was an Icelandic writer, an author. He wrote novels, short stories, plays, and poems, and essays, and biographies, and memoirs, and all sorts of things like that. And he is our only Nobel laureate. He won the Nobel Prize in 1955, I think. And I've been a little bit afraid of him, kind of intimidated. I think I read at least one of his books back in high school. Everybody has to read Halldór Laxness here in Iceland. And that one had such an impact on me, and I want to reread that this year. And I've decided this is one of the very few number goals that I've decided, well, it's actually, I think, maybe my only number goal of the year. It is to just read one Halldór Laxness a month. So I can get through 12 of his books. And that's kind of just my goal, just to really get to know him. And if I want to continue reading his books after the 12, then I can do that for sure. But at the minimum, I'm going to try to read 12. I think he's written like probably 20 novels and several short stories and lots of plays and a lot of biographies and memoirs. Or memoirs, I suppose, more than biographies. But yeah, so that's what I want to do. I want to read Halldór Laxness and really get to know his work. And just, he wrote a lot about Icelandic culture. He was very critical. I mean, he was, at least for the first, I think from all his entire life, but at least when he was a younger man, he was extremely left-wing. He was basically a socialist. And he was so critical of the kind of society in Iceland where everywhere really, if you're in a capitalistic society, you're kind of given the illusion that you can make it in the world through hard work and determination, when it's not really the case, because people with the money, they are always like 50 steps ahead of you anyway. But anyway, so he's very critical also of the kind of the peasant farmer culture in Iceland. And a lot of his books are really have had such good have done really well internationally. So yeah, I want to read at least 12 books of his this year. And then connected with Halldór Laxness, who won the Nobel Prize in 1955, and kind of my also wanting to kind of broaden my horizon and read books from other parts of the globe other than just Western or Northern Europe, and some American as well, or mostly American, maybe some the US-based American, or maybe a little bit Canadian as well, is to actually look up all of the Nobel Prize winners in literature. As I think when I Googled it, it said there have been about 120 individuals who have won the Nobel Prize in literature. And I would actually like to read a book or, play or poem or whatever by each one of those Nobel Prize winners. Just starting back in 1906 or 19 something like that, very early 20th century, and read at least one book or one piece of work by each of the Nobel Prize winners until modern day. Obviously, this will take me several years, if there are like 120 already that have won. But I think that could be a very interesting challenge, and something that will definitely get me to get to know authors from different countries. I mean, I don't know how diverse the winning, if you take all the winners of the Nobel Prize in literature and you put them in a room, I don't know exactly how diverse those authors are going to be. I'm sure it's going to be very slanted towards white Western people. But I know that there have been people from other parts of the world that have won as well. So at least I feel that it might give me I could put my foot in the door, so to speak, in order to get to know other authors from different parts of the world. And yes, before I almost forgot, for the Nobel Prize winning authors, I don't have any numerical goal here. I don't know how many I will get to each year, but I just wanna, like, I'm gonna make myself a list on a Google Docs of all the winners and just check each one when I've read something by them already. And yeah, so there's no time frame for this goal. And the last goal that I have for the year is actually to read more fantasy. Fantasy is actually one of my most favorite genre. My all-time favorite fantasy is Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. The Hobbit, maybe not as much as the Lord of the Rings, but I have the Icelandic translation. I've also listened to the audiobook, or the audiobooks, the 4 of them. The audiobook of The Hobbit was narrated by Martin Freeman, who is Bilbo in the movies, and the audiobooks of the Lord of the Rings trilogy was narrated by, I can't remember the actor's name who played Gollum, Smeagol. I'll put his name on the screen. But those are excellent narrations. But I would like to branch out a little bit more in regards to fantasy. So I've read a lot of the books surrounding the Lord of the Rings, like the Silmarillion, and I can't remember the other books. I've read Game of Thrones and some other fantasy books, but I would love to as well again branch out. And last year I started reading the Red Rising saga, which is actually a sci-fi, but I'm kind of putting it in fantasy realm. And what are you doing, Kent? Okay. And so I've read the 3 first books, the trilogy, the original trilogy, and there are I think 3 or 4 more books in this saga, and it's so good. Oh my god, it's so good. The first book, or the second book of the trilogy, almost made my top 5 of last year. It's so good. I mean, the world building, and then because it's like built almost like the Roman Empire, so there's like references to the Roman empires. A lot of the names are like Latin names and from the Roman Empire, and there's some like mythology. I don't know. The world building is just so good. So I want to make sure that I finish the last 3 or 4 books in that saga, in that series. It's really good. Another thing that I want to read is actually I want to start to read some of the books written by Brandon Sanderson, who is, I've just learned in the last year or so, apparently the godfather of modern fantasy, at least, modern fantasy writers. And he's written a lot of series and standalone. I mean, he's just written a lot of books, and he's really good at creating fantasy. I don't think I've read anything by him. So I would definitely like to read at least 1 book by Brandon Sanderson. Hopefully I will love him and want to read all of his work. And then the last one that I want to read is actually Neil Gaiman, sorry. I saw the Sandman series on Netflix, and I absolutely loved it. So I would love to read that book, or those, like, well, not books, are they? Animated. I don't know what they're called. I would love to read those, but also just some of his other work. I am not 100% convinced that I will like him. He feels very out there, very dreamy, and I'm not always in the mood to read books like that, or like fantasy like that. I like really good fantasy, but I needed to have some basis in reality so that I can kind of relate to how it would be in that fantasy world, you know? we'll see. He's obviously very famous and very successful writer, and so. And yeah, so I would really like to read some of his work. We'll see how much. Yeah, it's gonna. I will definitely keep you posted on how I like him, because I'm not 100% sure that I will, but you know, you don't know unless you try, right? So those were my 2024 reading goals. I look forward to seeing how it goes, and I'm going to give not a monthly update, I don't think. Maybe in halfway through the year, I will maybe give an update as to how I'm doing with these goals. But at the same time that I have these goals, I also am, because they're everywhere, Emma. Oh my God. But because I'm really trying to be like in a slow living mindset. Reading is one of the tools that I use for slow living, to relax and to de-stress. So I definitely do not want to make reading into some sort of a I don't want it to be so challenging that it becomes stressful. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. So these are goals, but I'm not gonna be disappointed if I can't read any of them, or so everything is just going to be a little bit relaxed here on this channel. We are just enjoying reading for reading's sake. I'm not listening to audiobooks on double speed so that I can get through as many books as possible, which is fine if that's what you want to do. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that for me, reading is relaxation and enjoyment, and I just want to do it kind of slowly and intentionally and really enjoy the experience. Yes. I guess that's it. I would love to hear if you've read anything from that would fit into any of my goals. I would love some recommendations, because this is obviously a very kind of a new. Some of these books, the goals are quite new to me, so recommendations would be highly appreciated. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed. I would love to hear maybe also about your goals for the year down in the comments, and I guess I'll just see you in my next video. Bye bye.